Hello, my name is Justin Stone. This is my first time doing this, so yeah. Um, I'm not really 100% sure what what I'm going to say, but I've been feeling really called to kind of share a little bit of my experience in recovery and yeah, I just feel called to share some of my experience in a 12-step program, also share some of my experience with spirituality, spiritual experiences, bringing that into also like self-love, inner child work, and a previous experience that I had when I first came into 12-step recovery. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit like about, in general, my experience and what my experience looks like previously. And I'm just trying to tap into my intuition and kind of let spirit, God, higher power speak through me a little bit. So I just want to talk a little bit about being sober. So I got sober the first time, like that I really got sober. I was 21 years old, and basically I was terrified. I went into treatment after a run, and I was just really broken down, and I was scared, and the fear of ever relapsing motivated me to move forward. And in a way, like that was really great, and it really helped me. It helped me stay sober for 6.5 years. But I was motivated by fear and shame, and the and it worked for a little bit. The problem was it stopped working at a certain point, and I felt really lost, and like I didn't have anyone to guide me into a deeper experience in the program. So when I came in, I was kind of told, this is the program, this is the big book, here's your big book, read the first 164 pages. And I did, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it over and over again. And, to have a new experience each time. And I got to know the book really well, and I had an experience in the program. I worked the steps. I did what I was asked to do. I was in like a lineage of sponsorship, and I don't know if I would call it like a sect of the 12-step program here in Texas, in the Austin area. So a lot of like black and white, this is what recovery looks like. The first 164 pages of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is the truth and only truth. And just a lot of black and white thinking. And what I didn't know at the time, I think just because I didn't know myself really well at the time, I was 21 years old. I spent my whole life up to that point. I don't remember hardly anything before I was 12 years old. And then from 12 to 21, I was just obliterated as often as I could be. And so in my whole life, what I did was I avoided my feelings. And nothing that I say is to put blame on anybody. I'm not blaming my parents or anything like that. And I think that society in general and what we're taught in a lot of families is, and I also think that there's like an awakening happening, and there's a lot of stuff shifting right now. But growing up, like I was never taught that it was okay to feel my feelings. And so I never really said what I was actually feeling. I thought that sadness was bad. I thought that anger was bad. And so my whole life, I started getting bullied really early on. I can look at, like, through doing inner child work, like I can look back and see, I have memories here and there, and I can see, like, and I've seen home videos, and like, I see the beautiful, innocent child that I was. And I came into this world very sensitive, just very sensitive, very emotional, very feminine. And, I didn't fit into the box that society said, this is what a boy looks like. This is what a man looks like. This is what a little boy is supposed to do and like. And I remember just feeling like I was wrong from the start, like something was wrong with me. I remember I wanted a Barbie dream house, but like that wasn't okay, So I suppressed everything constantly. I suppressed all my emotions, and was never really taught to talk about my feelings. And that's a very normal thing, I think, in our society and in family systems, is like, we don't talk about what we're really feeling. And so I always believed sadness was bad. Like I said, anger was bad. So I never expressed those things. I internalized them, and I turned it all on myself. And I just felt like I was defective and like I was a bad person. Drugs and alcohol finally like gave me an outlet to release a lot of that. Like I didn't have to feel it. It also gave me a lot of friends. Then moving forward, like getting sober at 21, it was like, okay, I'm terrified. I don't want to live this way anymore. So I threw myself into this 12-step program. And like I said, it was very black and white. So I fell into that black and white thinking, even though in my heart, when I look back, it never sat right with me. But like I said, I really didn't know who I was or how to stand up for what I believed in. I didn't really know what I believed in. So I threw myself into the 12-step program, and fear motivated me along the way. And it worked for a while. I started sponsoring people. I had H&I commitments. And I started building my life externally to look really good. I kept a job longer than I ever had in my life. That was a big deal. Like all of these things were huge victories, but like I thought that like that's where my worth came from, from doing. And I think that that's like a very normal thing that we're taught. I know for me, like that's what I picked up from society is like, if you do enough, you'll be enough. And so finally I was in a position where I could, keep a job and work really hard. So I had a really strong work ethic, and I never loved myself. I wasn't caring for myself. I wasn't taking the time that I needed to nurture myself. I started working for somebody that really valued me, but I also was not in a place where I could say, I thought what I needed to do was give my life to this job. And so I worked and I worked and I worked, and I saved, and I started saving money, and I started building a life. I got a nice apartment. I started getting nice furniture. Save money. If I save X amount of dollars, I'll be happy. I'll be enough. I'll whatever, it's like all these lies. And I started accumulating all these things. I started traveling a lot. If I go on this vacation and I go here, and a lot of it, like without me even realizing it in the moment, was like, I wasn't even present when I was traveling. It was like, it was all about an image. It was all about like, I've learned a lot about codependency recently, and what I thought was just codependency was like these like really unhealthy relationships, and I kind of avoided relationships a lot of my life. And so I thought I'm not codependent, but like codependency is like validation seeking, you know? And I was doing that forever, and people pleasing, like going against what I really like wanted or needed to please somebody else. Or really, not that it, I don't know, not that it even really pleases them, but you know, that's what I felt like I needed to do, was deny what I was really feeling. And so I stuffed a lot of feelings. And yeah, like I did 4 steps, and I was thorough and honest. Like I tend to be like too open and vulnerable with too many people, if anything. So for me, it was like, yeah, I was like really open. And then I picked these sponsors that really relayed the same internal dialogue that I already had for myself, was that I wasn't enough, that I was, you know, I was too shy. I was too introverted. Like it was hard for me to share at meetings, and I would beat myself up for that all the time. You know, I remember a sponsor at one point being like, okay, you need to go out and at every meeting approach 2 people at the beginning and at the end of every meeting. And then I wouldn't do it because I was really scared. And at that time I was really introverted, and because I was so scared. And then I wouldn't do it, and then I would just beat myself up. And then I would just continue the same cycle of like beating myself up, then my sponsors beating me up, you know, like just I had a lot of sponsors that yelled at me, and I'm not blaming them. Like I chose these people, and I chose them because I believed that that's what I needed. I believed that that was the only type of recovery that was gonna sustain me. That's at least, and that was my interpretation of everything that I learned. And somebody else's interpretation of it may have been completely different, but like for me, that's what I picked up, you know, is that that's what I needed. I needed people to yell at me. I needed people to put me in my place. And that works really well for a lot of people. And what I realized over time is at a certain point, it stopped working for me. And at 2 years sober, I wanted to end my life. And I just remember being on the phone with my sponsor and being like, okay, I don't know what's wrong. I can't do this anymore. I remember he wanted me to drop all my sponsees. It just kind of added to the shame that I was already feeling. Like I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Like looking back on it, first of all, I wasn't loving myself. Like I was seeking validation in all these things outside myself. And having these sponsors that yelled at me, so yeah, it was, hang on, I'm having a moment. It was really hard for me to continue in that, but I did. So from that point, like I reached that point, I ended up moving past it, through continuing to work. You know, basically what I was told always is like, you must be leaving something out. Like you need to work another 4-step. You need to make some more amends. You need to do. You need to do this. You need to do that, like something. And I'm like, I don't think I'm leaving anything out. Like it wasn't working for me anymore. And I really thought that like, what I picked up was like, okay, as long as I work the 12 steps diligently, like I'm going to be happy, joyous, and free. And I wasn't happy, joyous, and free. And so it really like threw me off, and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, okay, if I'm doing all these things and I'm not happy, joyous, and free, and also I know that if I go back to drugs and alcohol, like drugs and alcohol are not going to work, it just left me at that point feeling like there was no way out, which is really scary. And is the main reason why I start making these videos. I don't know what it's going to look like moving forward. But I just want to like have an outlet to talk about these things. Because even some of these things I feel like are a little out there to talk about in meetings. And, but like I want to share my experience. And I feel like having the experience of all, like none of this was for no reason. There was purpose in it all. And even when I relapsed, I remember I just knew that there was such a purpose in me relapsing. And I really believe that it is so I can be where I am today and, use that experience and the experience of being sober before, of surface level recovery before, and of it not working, and me to hopefully be a guide for people who are kind of in that same place where it feels like, wow, like what's happening? This isn't working anymore. And it doesn't feel like I'm missing a piece of inventory or like an amends that I need to make or whatever. So for me, like the journey from there, I mean, like my relapse was really painful, and like the last 3 years of my life has been really crazy and chaotic. And I mean, really, I'm so grateful for it because it humbled me. I needed everything stripped away. I built my life to look really pretty externally. And then these last few times I've tried to get sober, I tried to get back to that place really quick. Thinking, even though I knew in my heart that like that wasn't going to bring me joy and happiness, it didn't before, my ego said like, no, I need to get back there. And it's like through losing everything, other than my car. I still have my car and I'm really grateful for that. And just now it's like being on this journey of like, so also after that 4 years, I ended up, after my first 4 years in the program and the black and white stuff, I got really resentful, and my sponsor told me I needed to make an amends that I didn't believe I needed to make. And through everything that I'd been told over the years, my belief was, okay, if I don't make this amends, I'm going to get effed up and die. That's what I was always told. That's what I believed. So it was like, even though I knew like, no, that doesn't have to be the case, I was really terrified. And I decided no. I had already mended the situation with my ex-boyfriend at the time. And he was telling me, no, you need to go back and make this formal amends. You need to sit down face to face, blah, blah, blah. This is what it needs to look like. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I dropped him as a sponsor. And from there, I left the 12-step program completely, which I don't recommend. The 12 steps themselves, there's just something, I mean, like, it is what helped me initiate my first contact with spirit, with God, with my higher power. And I still use the 12 steps today, and I go to meetings and I do all of these things. But like what I needed was a deeper level of spirituality. And I wish that I was so angry though. But I mean, I wish I had stuck in some 12-step stuff and started exploring spirituality, but I just threw myself into Eastern philosophy and explored Hinduism some, started going to kirtan, chanting, like doing all these things, yoga teacher training, doing a lot of yoga. And all that stuff like really helped, and I was much happier doing all that than I was in the rigid 12-step program. But then I lost the fellowship piece, the community piece, which I feel like is such a big thing. So I lost that. I started losing my new connections. I was obsessed with this idea of that I needed to be in this perfect relationship. So I was seeking that out, and I was betraying myself just by, a lot of like, I don't know, a lot of sexual things and other things that I got into. And I was never loving myself. I always based my worth on what my external world looked like, what other people thought of me. And it was never enough to sustain me. And I feel like in the beginning, it was all about surrendering everything to spirit, to God, to higher power, just surrendering everything. And then other people and jobs and money became more of my higher power. And basically, like, this last few years has been really crazy. And this last recovery center that I went to, I really got the opportunity to slow down. And for me, like, I needed that. Even right now, I'm like, oh, I need to slow down because I get in this like really fast moving, crazy, whatever. So like through that process of slowing down and really having to sit with myself, like not having any distractions, like I had to learn to start loving myself. And it's a fucking journey. I don't know if I can cuts on here. I hope I can. It's a journey. And it's a journey that really I'm just starting. And I had done affirmations and stuff in the past, but I never believed them. And now it's like an internal dialogue for me on a regular basis. Saying really positive things about myself. I had this false belief for a long time that like humility looked like, if I was going to be humble, if somebody told me like something positive about myself, or somebody said, oh, like, you're such a light, you're so whatever, I thought in order to stay humble, I needed to deny that and push that away and say, no, that's not true. Internally, like just tell myself that so that I could be humble. And what I've learned recently is like, that's not humility at all. Like when I'm in that place and denying that and I don't believe it about myself, what ends up happening is I have a really low self-esteem that then turns into ego and arrogance. So I overcompensate, you know? When I have low self-esteem like that, I tend to overcompensate and I'm seeking validation from other people. So it's not humility. Like true humility is like, okay, yeah, I see my light. And this honestly, I can say, and I'm just at the beginning of this journey. But I can really say that this is the first time that I can see my light. And we all have it. And that's the thing. Like that is the biggest thing, is like realizing that like everybody has that. Everybody was that little baby when they were born that's innocent and pure, and like that is pure unconditional love, spirit, innocence. Like that is in all of us. So that for me is like what keeps me truly humble, is like, yeah, I see my light today and I see that I have purpose today, and I don't have to overcompensate or like seek validation from other people. Like I can get that validation from my higher power, from God, from myself. And through that, I can have true loving relationships with other people. And I can really practice unconditional love. When I'm able to, and I'm definitely not at a point where I'm able to do it all the time, but I am practicing it on a daily basis right now, is like learning to love myself unconditionally. Even like all the darkest parts of myself. When something comes up and I'm like, okay, like that's not ideal. It's learning to love that part of myself. Like shaming that part of myself only keeps me stuck in it. So like, yeah, now my recovery today, like moving forward, right now is like I'm focusing a lot on that, like on the inner dialogue, on the inner child work, which is just like that part of us that's in everybody. Like I think of it like those little China dolls that like there's a smaller doll and you take them out and there's a smaller one under each one. It's like all those layers of myself are inside, and sometimes I react to life from the place of like a wounded child. So it's learning to like be there for that part of myself, and just for myself in general, like all those positive affirmations, all the positive self-talk, is something that I'm really working on lately. Also, a lot of meditation, a lot of like tapping into my intuition. And it's just seeing for me that like the 12-step recovery is the basis and the foundation of my recovery right now. And especially right now, because I'm just starting on this journey again. Also, the bringing in the spiritual piece and just seeing like, for me, that like I used the program to shame myself. And I don't think that that's what it was designed for, but like that's what I did. I could look at my character defects. I could beat myself over the head with them. Like I very aware of my flaws, and I would beat myself up for them already. So like doing a 4-step and 5th step, like I could use that to beat myself over the head, especially 6 and 7. Just feeling like I was like just a really bad person. And it's learning to love myself through all that. And really realizing it's not like, for me, it's not so black and white. It's not black and white. There's so much gray area, And, for me, like I needed to soften in my program. Like that's really what I needed this time around is, I always went through the steps really quickly, and like I've gone through them really slowly this time, and staying on step 3 for a long time, like really helped me see where I'm surrendering everything. And, I just think it's so important to talk about this and to just talk about like, there is deeper levels of recovery. And I think that, there's a surface level 12-step recovery out there, especially in the area that I'm in. There's a lot of like surface level. Still, nobody's really talking about what's really going on, not talking about feelings and things like that. And there's a place for all that. But like for me, I think it's going into, rather than shying away from those places, judging those people, whatever. I have no judgment for those people. I was that person, It's just seeing that like, instead of shutting that out or being judgmental, it's going in and seeing like, what can I offer, what can I bring? How can I bring my light into this, my God into this, and talk about some of this stuff, like talk about, this journey to self-love, and talk about living from the heart. And what I find also is like, when I get vulnerable in a meeting and I share from my heart, a lot of times it really opens up for other people to feel comfortable being more open and vulnerable, to speak more from their heart. And I think that it's just, and not even like, if we're not even talking about just recovery, like I think that this is such an important movement. And I'll talk in later videos too, probably a little bit more about like A Return to Love, which I just read recently, and I think is so beautiful. like, I think that that's a movement that's happening right now that really needs to happen. And it really is the answer. I mean, I just really see like love is the answer. If I can meet everything with love and light, like if I meet darkness with light, it draws out the darkness. Rather than if I meet darkness if I then let my vibration lower down to that level, brings out the ego in both of us. And so we're both kind of combating. Whereas, if I bring light into the situation, no matter what it is, meet it with light, meet it with love. People don't know how to act, and I think that it's just such an important thing right now, with everything the way it is in the world. Yeah, I think that that's all I have to share for this first video. So thank you so much for listening. I am gonna try to create a channel or something. I think I've never done this before, so we will see. But yeah, thank you for listening. Have a great day.